I would have to say at the Beijing Olympics when I was doing a live in front of the Bird's Nest Stadium, the fireworks were going on in the background. And I was actually trying to sort of raise my voice because there was all this commotion going on being in Beijing. And for the Olympics, which is such a historic occasion for China, was one of my standout memories.
Hello, CIS community. Thank you very much for taking the time to view what I'm hopeful you will find to be a particularly fascinating, edifying, uplifting conversation with another member of our community on whose deep insight and striking example we wish to draw for strength and inspiration in this time of campus closures, social distancing, travel bans, and the like, all of which we will surely overcome precisely because our students, past and present, are so very special. Today, it's my great pleasure and privilege to talk with acclaimed journalist and Chinese International School alumnus, Tony Sabine. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Tony, you're the oldest of three brothers who all attended CIS, with you yourself joining us in year 5 when our school was still located in the Barrett Road Military Hospital, and graduating from Chinese International School in 1996 as part of our 3rd graduating class. Then after CIS, you attended the famous School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Following university, you returned to Hong Kong and began a celebrated career in journalism, working at Asia Week, CNN, ATV, and for the past 9 years, Hong Kong's leading English language broadcaster, Television Broadcasts Limited, otherwise known as TVB, where you've played a range of roles, starting as anchor and becoming deputy managing editor in February 2019. We could begin by just talking about where your vocation for journalism began.
I remember reading newspapers or flipping through even magazines like The Economist from a very young age, because my father would leave them lying around. And I think that piqued my interest in current affairs and news. And then I always watched the broadcast news. As a family, it was one of our rituals. I think, just looking at the nightly news here in Hong Kong, but also overseas, they say on the BBC. And I thought, oh, wow, that might be something I'd like to do one day. And I think that's where it all started. And so, you just bit by bit, you sort of develop that interest. And then, so that's why I went into local Hong Kong TV, first at ATV and now with my current position at TVB.
What about the broadcast studio itself? Because in my imagination, that's an incredibly exciting, dynamic place.
There's always a press briefing that we have to break in for, that our newsroom has to break in for. So, we're always sort of on edge to see. There's usually a list of stories which we all talk over, and we'll basically finalize what we think should be the main Hong Kong stories to focus on. We'll get those stories assigned. I'll assign international stories just to help round up international news. And then we basically get the stories done, put them all together. I check over them, and we're ready to go at 7:30.
As someone who could clearly work at a leading broadcast station anywhere in the world, Tony, I'm wondering why it is that you decided to pursue your career here in Hong Kong.
Obviously, Hong Kong is hometown for me. Being at TIS and lived in China and Taiwan, I felt sort of yearning to come to start my career here and to sort of live and work here. And also, Hong Kong has long been a place of opportunity, and certainly the city is facing difficult times and challenging times. But I think throughout the years that the people of Hong Kong have shown that they're very resilient and resourceful and hardworking. And those are attributes, I think, which will help the city in the years ahead.
What's it been like to cover the COVID-19 crisis?
We're mindful that we need to tell people what's going on so people can be prepared and people can make plans and people are informed. But we also are aware we don't want to get people worked up. We don't want to spread panic. For instance, when we cover the story of the panic buying a few weeks back of toilet paper and other necessities that start flying off the shelves just all of a sudden here in Hong Kong, and now you see in many other cities around the world, we obviously had to report that this was going on because it's a social phenomenon. You saw people lining up outside 7-Elevens and parking shops. It was crazy. But we also wanted to, in our stories, we had to make sure we included sound bites or from, say, authority figures and members of the retail trade here in Hong Kong, that there's a steady supply of rice and other essentials. We're not going to run out.
Tony, there's such an abundance of information available on the internet nowadays for our students. What advice would you give them for trying to get at the truth to the extent that's possible and avoid falling prey to some of the pitfalls of fake news and everything else?
Who is saying this? What is their agenda? All these questions have to sort of come up instinctively. Let's take, for example, the instance of a picture which went viral of bat in soup, which allegedly helped start this pandemic. And that was found to be just basically a photo which came from Palau. It wasn't from China at all. But people attributed it to the wet market in Wuhan, and without actually verifying. So it is very important to sort of get in the habit of verifying, asking a question, well, okay, who sent this out? Why are they sending this out? Is this for real? Does this seem right? And that can be very hard to do when you're flooded with information.
What guidelines would you use for covering more controversial subjects where you have very different views in your audience about whatever the subject might be? How do you go about navigating that kind of journalistic challenge?
First of all, we have to respect each other, that we all have different views, right? But we must not be seen to be sort of pandering to one side or another, especially if your guiding principle for the organization is sort of fair and balanced, or, you know, without fear or favor, or supreme neutrality. So you must try to do your best to uphold to those principles. We have editorial guidelines, basically say we report what happened, we try and find out all we can, and in doing so, covering as many angles, as many aspects as possible, to try and give a wholesome picture of what's going on.
If you could interview anybody in the world today, who would the person be, and why would you choose him or her, and what would you ask?
I used to swim a lot. So for me, I think interviewing an Olympic athlete or gold medalist like, say, Michael Phelps, he's one of the greatest athletes of all time. He won 8 gold medals in Beijing. He won 8 Olympic medals in Athens. So by the time Beijing Olympics were done, he was already in the pantheon of great athletes, but he kept on going. And I would ask him, how do you sustain or the drive for excellence when you've done everything, when you've broken all the world records, when you've won 8 Olympic golds? How do you keep the fire going?
Heartfelt gratitude, Tony, for the exceptional compass with which you've provided us for navigating these challenging times. Or I say compass, but actually a better seafaring metaphor would probably be lighthouse, because your words are like a beacon, which will be immensely helpful in the weeks ahead. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And best wishes to everyone.